In the heart of the sprawling Montana plains, where the sky stretched endlessly like a canvas painted by a divine hand, Eleanor Vanderbilt stood at the edge of her newly acquired ranch, her designer boots sinking slightly into the dusty earth. She was a woman of immense wealth, heir to a fortune built on steel and stocks, but on this crisp autumn morning in 2025, she felt smaller than ever. The wind whispered through the golden grass, carrying the distant lowing of cattle, and Eleanor clutched her cashmere scarf tighter. She had come here seeking solace from the glittering chaos of New York City, but instead, she found herself staring up at a figure that defied belief, a giant cowboy, towering at least 12 feet tall, his weathered Stetson casting a shadow that swallowed her whole. His name was Harlan Big Sky McCoy, a legend whispered among the locals, a man born of the land itself, or so the stories went. Eleanor had dismissed the tales as folklore until now, as he approached with strides that shook the ground like gentle earthquakes. "Ma'am," his voice boomed like thunder rolling over the hills, "you the new owner of Whispering Pines Ranch?" Her heart raced. This was no ordinary encounter. Little did she know, this giant would unravel her guarded world and teach her the true measure of strength. Eleanor had always lived in a bubble of privilege. Born into one of America's oldest families, she navigated boardrooms and galas with effortless grace, her philanthropy a calculated extension of her image, donating to causes that polished her reputation without demanding her soul. But lately, cracks had formed in her facade. A recent divorce from a Wall Street tycoon had left her questioning everything, the empty mansions, the fleeting friendships, the hollowness that wealth couldn't fill. Seeking reinvention, she purchased the ranch on a whim, drawn by romantic notions of wide-open spaces and simpler lives. The real estate agent had mentioned Harlan in passing, a reclusive giant who roamed the plains, helping ranchers with tasks too daunting for ordinary men, like mending fences single-handedly or herding stampeding bison. "He's harmless," the agent assured her, "but folks say he's got a heart as big as his frame." Eleanor arrived expecting solitude, not this colossal confrontation. As Harlan knelt down to her level, his massive knees creaking like ancient oaks, she felt a mix of awe and terror. His face was etched with lines from years under the sun, as the color of storm clouds, kind yet weary. "I heard you might need help settling in," he said softly, his voice modulating to a rumble that didn't overwhelm. "The land here's got a mind of its own." Eleanor nodded, her voice caught in her throat. How could she, with all her resources, feel so insignificant next to this man who seemed forged from the mountains themselves? As days turned into weeks, Eleanor found herself drawn into Harlan's world, a reluctant observer at first. The ranch was in disrepair, fences sagging, barns leaning like drunken sailors, and a herd of cattle that seemed perpetually on the verge of chaos. Her hired hands were competent, but Harlan's presence transformed the impossible into routine. It would arrive at dawn, his silhouette against the rising sun like a guardian spirit, lifting hay bales that would crush a team of men, or coming a raging bull with a gentle pat from his enormous hand. Eleanor watched from her porch, sipping coffee, fascinated by his quiet efficiency. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a blaze of orange and pink, she mustered the courage to approach him. "Why do you help everyone like this?" she asked, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. Harlan paused, wiping sweat from his brow with a handkerchief the size of a bedsheet. "Ain't no one else can, ma'am. Been this way since I was a boy, grew too big for the world, so I figured I'd make the world fit me by lending a hand." His words struck a chord. Eleanor realized her wealth had isolated her, making her problems seem insurmountable while ignoring the struggles of others. But Harlan's selflessness was infectious, planting seeds of change in her hardened heart. The first unexpected turn came during a fierce thunderstorm that swept across the plains like an angry god. Lightning cracked the sky, and rain pounded the earth into mud. Eleanor's ranch house, a modern marvel of glass and steel, held firm, but out in the fields, disaster struck. A flash flood threatened to sweep away a neighboring family's homestead, a modest farm owned by the Millers, a hard-working couple with 3 young children. The call came in the dead of night, the river had burst its banks, and their home was flooding fast. Eleanor, awakened by the frantic knocking of her foreman, felt a surge of panic. She had resources, helicopters, emergency funds, but the storm grounded all flights, and roads were impassable. Then, Harlan appeared at her door, rain streaming down his massive form like rivers on a mountain. "We gotta go, ma'am," he said, his eyes resolute. "The Millers need us." Eleanor hesitated. She wasn't built for this, her laugh was galas, not rescues. But something in Harlan's gaze stirred her. "I'll drive," she said, grabbing her keys to the all-terrain vehicle. Together, they braved the tempest, Harlan wading through waist-deep water that barely reached his knees, carrying supplies on his back. As they reached the miller's farm, Eleanor saw the desperation, the family huddled on the roof, the children crying as water rose. Harlan extended his arms like bridges, lifting them one by one to safety. In that moment, Eleanor realized her wealth meant nothing without action. She dove in, helping secure ropes and comforting the terrified kids. It was her first taste of true humanity, raw and unfiltered. Yet, the story deepened with another twist, one that pierced Eleanor's soul. As they returned to the ranch, Harlan confided in her under the clearing stars. "Truth is, ma'am, I ain't always been like this. Born normal-sized, but a rare condition hit me young, gigantism, docs called it. Folks stared, called me freak. My pa left, sighing, I was too much burden. Ma raised me best she could, but she passed early. Been wondering, ever since, el pin, where I can to make sense of it all." His vulnerability shocked Eleanor. This giant, who seemed invincible, carried wounds deeper than any canyon. She shared her own scars, the loneliness of boardrooms, the betrayal of her marriage, the fear that her life amounted to nothing but zeros in a bank account. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a Vanderbilt, but as Eleanor, a woman searching for purpose. Their conversations became nightly rituals, sitting by a fire that Harlan built with logs he felled himself. He taught her to rope cattle, to read the stars, to find joy in simplicity. In return, she offered him medical connections, specialists who could ease his joint pains from carrying the world's weight. But Harlan waved it off. "Some things too big to fix, but worth trying, anyway." His words echoed in her mind, a mantra for the challenges ahead. Winter descended on the plains like a silent blanket, bringing with it a crisis that tested them both. A brutal blizzard isolated the region, cutting power and supplies. Ranches across Montana faced starvation for their livestock, and families hunkered down against the cold. Harlan, ever the pillar, set out to deliver hay and firewood, his giant strides cutting through snowdrifts like a plow. But one fateful night, he didn't return. Eleanor paced her ranch house, worry gnawing at her. When dawn broke, she ventured out, following his massive footprints that the wind hadn't yet erased. She found him collapsed in a ravine, his body half buried in snow, shivering despite his size. "Harlan," she cried, rushing to his side. It was hypothermic, his strength sapped from days of relentless aid. "Too big, for this cold," he murmured, his teeth chattering. Eleanor's heart shattered. This man who had given everything now lay vulnerable. "We's no time to lose," she radioed for help, but the storm blocked rescuers. Drawing on her resources, she mobilized her private jet's crew, pilots braving the edges of the weather, to airlift supplies. But it wasn't enough. Harlan needed warmth, shelter. In a profound realization, Eleanor saw that her wealth could bridge the gap where nature faltered. She whispered to him, tears freezing on her cheeks, "This is too big for me, but I'll try." Rallying the community via satellite phone, she organized a chain of neighbors, each contributing what they could, blankets, hot broth, even generators flown in from her contacts. The emotional climax unfolded in that ravine, as Eleanor refused to leave Harlan's side. She built a makeshift shelter from tarps and her own coats, huddling against his massive form to share body heat. "You've carried everyone else," she said, her voice fierce with determination. "Now let me carry you." Hours blurred into a haze of cold and resolve. Neighbors arrived, drawn by her calls, forming a human chain to pull Harlan free. In that act of collective compassion, Eleanor transformed, from a detached philanthropist to a woman who gave not just money, but herself. Harlan's eyes met hers as he stirred, a weak smile breaking through. "You did it, ma'am. Smile as you are, you moved mountains." The rescue wasn't just physical, it healed invisible wounds. Eleanor realized that true generosity wasn't about scale, but sincerity, the power of one heart reaching out to another, no matter the size. As helicopters finally arrived, lifting Harlan to safety, the community cheered, a testament to humanity's unbreakable spirit. In the weeks that followed, as spring thawed the land, Eleanor's ranch blossomed into a hub of kindness. She established the Big Sky Foundation, funding medical research for conditions like Harlan's and community programs that fostered selflessness. Harlan recovered, his bond with Eleanor unbreakable. They became partners in every sense, her intellect complementing his strength. No longer wandering alone, he found a home, and she discovered purpose beyond wealth. The story of the rich woman and the giant cowboy spread across America, from bustling cities to quiet towns, inspiring acts of compassion in unexpected places, a CEO volunteering at shelters, a student starting a food drive. It reminded everyone that challenges may seem too big, but with a whisper of resolve, I'll try. And a hand extended in humanity, transformation is possible. In a world often divided, their tale whispered a heartwarming truth. Kindness knows no size, selflessness bridges any gap, and the power of one compassionate act can echo forever, leaving us all a little more hopeful under the vast, shared sky.